Good evening and welcome to another exciting episode of Triple Tap. This is episode number 42. We're slowly getting up there, so welcome everybody to this call. Welcome Kent, welcome Lance. How are you this week, guys? How's your week been? We haven't spoken much this week.
It's been a pretty strange week this week. I've been getting phone calls from currently serving police officers again about Wyambilla and the shootings that took place there. They're deeply concerned in relation to things they're beginning to find out. I'll talk more about that later once I've got a few more hard facts. Also, now it's alleged to be a suicide that the coroner has found Queensland Police are heavily responsible for. And we're talking about a veteran, an Australian Defence Force veteran who's participating in an alternative political party, who's has severe eyesight, mostly blind, is an amputee, and under a siege where no gun is found. And they're claiming that he had a gun, but is there no gun? Anyway, there's plenty for me to look into here and find out. Now we're finding out that he's dead, and they're saying he's committed suicide. Questions about a gun, but the facts have been released. The only gun that he owned was a fake toy gun. It's called Airsoft, that he used to play games with his children.
I also told Kent that he's deeply like a Christian, and therefore he knows that suicide is a sin, so he would never do that. So there's a lot of questions that need answering.
Well, there certainly are questions that need answering in relation to this. The coroner's really not happy, and the person who's the head of the police, who says, "Don't worry about the fact that I can't get enough police because all the police are leaving because they don't like my leadership and they don't like being forced to take drugs that are hurting them. Don't worry about that. I can train enough police." And then obviously she can't train enough police because no one wants to be a police officer. So now she's decided to bring foreign troops or foreigners into Australia to become police officers who are not citizens. They've got nothing to do with Australia. She's just going to bring them in, train them and hire them to be police officers. And do you think that's going to work? I mean, this from the woman who, when she was a completely untrained non-firefighter, was put in charge of the Queensland Fire Service and forgot that she needed to buy $50 million worth of firefighting equipment and fire trucks for the Queensland Fire Service, but also at the same time says, "Trust me, I can competently manage all of the finances for the Queensland Police Service." I mean, who are we kidding? What's going on?
Yeah, another story for another day, hey? How about you, Lance? How's your week been?
Look, I always have a great week. I look forward to this show. Looking forward to get into it, and let's kick it off.
Excellent. So with that, I'm just going to reshare my screen because, as some of you know, last week we did something a little bit different last week in introducing our bio for our speaker this week, which is none other than Julia Starr. She's a journalist, a musician, and a filmmaker. She's an independent Melbourne-based journalist, filmmaker, and musician, and she has devoted her life to the practice of spirituality, music performance, and researching areas of the occult, sound science, and healing. I must admit, when I bring Julia on in just a moment, I did a little bit of a stalking of her website. She's got quite a variety of things that this young lady does, which is quite impressive. In 2020, Julia completed a Bachelor of Music in Performance and Composition at Melbourne Polytechnic and has performed in a wide range of music ensembles such as Tripitaka, Jazz Lab Orchestra, the Tom Fryer Band, SK, Casey Bebenegg, Hashavarum Shell Cabaret, and many other fantastic Melbourne bands. And I do hope I did those justice. We'll have to check with Julia when we get her on. Her platform, Insight, she goes by Insight Truth Media, focuses its discussion around local current events, social issues, and why we as a species continue to experience self-inflicting suffering. Understanding natural law principles and raising the collective human consciousness is key to moving forward. And it all starts with the individual by being able to differentiate truth from falsehood. Julia's website, we will put this up, her links at the end of the show, but Julia's website is dedicated to the journey of self-exploration and the understanding of human consciousness. There is a strong correlation between those elements and the manifestation of why we are experiencing certain universal problems as a species. Julia aims to answer and provide empowering solutions to those who seek it. She's also very passionate about exposing child trafficking, satanic ritual abuse, and child abuse in Australia. I know she's been at the court cases with Pastor Paul Burton, who we have interviewed on this show. So Julia will be able to maybe tell us a little bit about that as we come on. There is a petition that is on her website about getting the 28 who signed those high-profile pedophiles in Australia, that protection order getting released, as many have been attempting to do for quite some time. I believe it had a 90-year suppression order. Oops, and before I share some of this, we'll come back to that. That's actually just some of little snippets I'm going to share with you in just a little bit later on in the show of some of the types of music and instruments that Julia is involved in. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please let's welcome to the call Julia Starr. Julia, if you're there, please turn your video on and let's get chatting. There she is.
Hello, how you going? Thanks for having me.
Amazing guitars and whatnot, and musical instruments and drums in the background I can see there.
Yeah, well, it still is my studio where I practice, record, film, and I spent the 2020 finishing my degree in this room. Yeah, so lots happened.
Yeah, excellent. So tell us, what are you doing now? And I'm also just going to ask our audience, guys, if you know Julia or you've got any questions along the way that you want us to ask Julia, please do pop them in the chat box so we can ask her those questions throughout the interview, because as you can see, she's got a wide variety of things that she's involved in, very talented in the music area. I'm only sad and jealous, Julia, because when I was a young girl, I studied piano, violin and clarinet, but of course never pursued any of those. So I had those opportunities, but never took them any further. So I don't even know if I could read music again now, but I do love music and I have some bongo drums. So I did see those in your videos when I was kind of stalking your website the other night. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and what are you most passionate about?
What I'm most passionate about, there's a few elements to that, but what I'm doing now is a result of what let me just start. I'll go back a little bit. Sorry. So as you mentioned, I very much in the music industry, I still am slightly involved, but my trajectory of my work, my practice in the music industry and on the instruments that I play changed drastically when, obviously, as we know, when the mandates came in. And so when I wasn't allowed to, well, when I say allowed, I use that term very loosely because I am in charge of my own self and I take responsibility for what I do in my life. But those things were enforced onto me at the time. And so yeah, so I couldn't actually play in a lot of those ensembles and bands that I have listed there, and which put me in a position of asking the question to myself, what do I do now? How do I move forward and stand up for myself? Because I'm not a victim and I don't subscribe to that thing that was pushed onto me by government officials, by my peers, teachers, and the list goes on. So how do I take responsibility? So I have a bunch of skills. I have all this technology in my room. I have a lot of ambition and motivation to fight for what is right, not just for me, but for what I see is going on in this world. So what I'm doing now is that I go around, I interview people in regards to issues around child trafficking, SRA. I have a podcast where I speak to people. So my skills are, I'm good at talking to people. I like to listen to people. I like to investigate. So as I've started this journey in podcasting, interviewing, I've literally started to learn what it is to be a journalist and what that means, and reporting on truth and learning and understanding what, as you've read out, why are we in the mess that we're in? And ultimately, with the research that I've done and heavy research that I've done, I keep coming back to the point where it's a human being that cannot or has trouble differentiating truth from falsehood. So that's a very big primary element of why I think we're in this mess. But that's essentially what I do in a nutshell, right? What I'm doing now. So
I think there's probably two camps when it comes to pedophilia. I think there's probably the people who are guilty of being involved in it, and then there's the mass majority of people who find it absolutely abhorrent, against everything they believe to be good and proper. What do we need to do to break through to the masses that this is such a huge problem globally?
Well, firstly, it's about breaking the taboo. I interviewed a lovely young woman by the name of Kerry. The interview is available on my on the Facebook account. I haven't attached it to the website as yet. I was just about to do it last night, but she talks about her experience, and the fact is that the issue is educating people that it's actually still happening on a mass scale. And when people are aware, that's the first key, but it's about what you do with that knowledge, because you can have knowledge about it, and that's great. But if you don't do, and if you don't take action on that knowledge, then what does that mean? Does that mean that person is, well, in a way, I don't know if complicit is probably the right word, but is in some way not doing anything about it. So to me, when I found out the extent of what we're facing, not just in this world, but in this country, the level of abuse that we are hearing about, the stories that are being told, the videos that I have seen of children's disclosures, I know that I have to act, not just by sharing the knowledge, but have to somehow encourage people to have the courage to speak about it themselves, because I can't do this on my own, right? So that's what that's the thing that's in my head in regards to that, around education and well, I don't know if it's probably empowering people to have the balls to talk about it. You know, it's not a pleasant topic to talk about, but when it's that prevalent, you know, we really need to break the taboo of it being something that we shouldn't talk about. Yeah, I just want to say one more thing, because every time I have talked about this topic on different, depending on what range we're talking about of abuse, every response that I've had from whether that's been someone from my family or a person that I've worked with, their first response is like, what, this is happening in Australia? Especially when I was speaking about the current case that I've been attending around Operation Noetics, where, as you guys have interviewed Pastor Paul Burton, the case where individuals are being criminalized for protecting children. People can't fathom that this is happening in Australia. So we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we also interviewed, I don't know if you're aware, but quite a while ago, we interviewed Dee McLaughlin, who also, I believe, travels in the same circles with Pastor Paul. And we believe that, well, I recall from that interview, she asked the question, do you know what the #1 country in the world is for child trafficking? And people were shocked when they found out it was Australia.
That's right. That's right.
And I think a couple of really valid points have been raised here. The maxim in law that you're talking about, Julia, when you speak about when people find out about something and they just go quiet because it's too difficult for them emotionally to deal with, and they refuse to then take action. It's called silence is consent. The word is consent. So if you silently stand by and watch someone commit a crime and do nothing to stop that, in law, it means that you consented to that crime.
Right. There you go.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at here. The other thing is a lot of the child trafficking that takes place in Australia is down to the fact that children are taken out of their homes from their parents by law enforcement agencies. They are placed in the care of companies that make ridiculous amounts of money every year. And all of this is funded by taxpayer money. So this is my money. This is your money. This is anyone's money who's ever paid tax in this country before, in Australia before. That money is taken by our politicians and paid to these companies to the tune of a physically well child. $250,000 per year goes to the company to look after that child. If the child is handicapped, $850,000 per handicapped child per year goes to that company. And then we look into those companies and we find out who is benefiting from owning those companies. And we find that there are judges, that there are politicians, that there are these so-called law-abiding citizens investing in these companies. And it's a self-funding cycle of trafficking children.
And it's happening right in front of our faces.
Yeah.
Right in front of our faces, never spoken of. And that's before we even begin to mention the institutionalized pedophilia that our prime ministers have covered, our attorney generals have covered. It is it's quite disgusting, and it's quite it will obliterate your faith in humanity.
And I also want to mention that, unfortunately, from what I've seen, that most people won't act on this, as in speak out or act in defense of these children, because it hasn't actually affected them personally. Now, what I'm seeing happen on a mass scale as well, in regards to child abuse, is the ideology of what's being taught not only in schools, but at events such as the Pride events that we're seeing, drag shows, drag storytime events, which I've attended a few, to observe and report and actually to confront. Now,
wow,
if people think that this is not going to affect your child, then it's just a matter of time before it does. Because I've had mothers, especially one mother, call me recently in tears, angry, almost in tears, because she can't believe that her is either 13 or 14-year-old daughter has been taken off her Medicare. So that means that she has no right to view her child's Medicare. A child can go seek doctor's advice, take medication, you name it, and the parent has to ask consent to the child. And we're talking about the school and the government acting as a parent now. So Guardian, sorry, yeah. And I've got a document here of around consent and confidentiality that is being applied in secondary schools around Victoria, where a doctor is able to assess if a young person is a mature minor. Now that's a very dangerous territory that we're going into, because the legal age is being lowered now of consent by someone that is not, like, a GP now has more authority over than the parent themselves. It's insane. So it's going to affect a lot of families, parents, and maybe that's what we'll have to take. But I look at this. Our youth, we've heard this term being thrown around. The youth are our future. But if the dark occultists, the people that are running the show, if you can call it that, take control of the minds of the youth on a mass scale, we're going to see something very dark and sinister coming up that we're going to have to deal with, and not sure what that's going to look like. But hopefully that we have more people start taking action. And yeah.
You're muted.
I think the dark occultists had captured the mind of the younger generation through Hollywood, through the music industry, through all these different forms of media. And the only way to wake them up is to find the trigger which switches them on. And for some people, that was Balenciaga. You know, just a big story about RSA and the fashion industry. And that was enough. So it wakes them up. But then you need to get them to make that next step, the courageous step, where they say, hey, I want to go and attend court with Pastor Paul so that we can have 10,000 people turn up and let the judge know that these crimes aren't acceptable. Let the politicians know. You can't lower the age of consent in law. They're using legislation to get around it. But you're either an adult or a child, and that definition is very well defined already in case law. So they're just walking their way around it. But the judiciary, you know, the lawyers, the bar, this is the problem. The whole system is broken. And it's time to sort of step away from that and find other ways to deal with these problems. And that's what we're proposing. But in your research, have you been able to make that connection with, you know, who benefits from this industry?
Who benefits?
Yeah, so like who's making...
Depend. Are we talking about finances or are we talking about finances? I think it's a little bit hard to pinpoint because, well, there's a front for, that's why they prefer to stay in the dark, because they don't want to be, I don't know exactly. No.
Yeah.
That's my quick short answer. Yeah.
Is it worthwhile we put a team together to follow the money trail?
Yeah.
Because that's something we can look at doing, because you know, like, these are the most heinous crimes committed in society, the unimaginable, and this is commonplace. This is their bread and butter. This is not the base, but this is the pinnacle of these people's lives. This is as good as they're ever going to get, committing these horrible, horrible crimes against children. And from there, it's all downhill, I suppose. So this is something we have to come together.
Yeah. It's a very big tangled web.
Yeah, it's more important than COVID. COVID, we all know, was just rubbish. It was a joke. Yeah. This is something we have to tackle as a collective. Yeah.
Reminds me of that old saying, oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. And I believe this web goes very, very deep. It's very connected. And I think you're right, Lance, if you follow the money trail and you go down one avenue, like we did with the ATO issue the other day, and you just follow all the different trails and who's involved, I think it's one thing that I've been hearing over the last 3 years: follow the money trail, because it all boils down to the people who are making the money. So,
and I think it's actually as well, there's another element to this, because I've spoken to an SRA survivor by the name of Rachel Vaughan, and her abuse and also I've listened to other abuse survivors in really great interviews. And when they've described satanic ritual abuse, that's not about money. That is about, from my perspective and understanding, it's about, it's a very sick and twisted, I actually don't really know how to get my mind into why they do that, but it's about harvesting energy and from the child. There is something in these rituals that are being performed that gives some sort of sick and twisted satisfaction. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I do suggest people listen to these interviews, specifically a great guy in Australia who interviews by the name of Dale Holmes. He's done a lot of great interviews with SRA survivors. And these survivors are not just speaking out in Australia, but globally. And there's a pattern that connects them all in regards to the type of abuse and how the abuse occurs and how it's covered up. It's the same story, but someone else is telling it in a different way. So there's that other element I just want to point out to people that may have not dived into that as well. Yeah.
So you can't even blame the mainstream media because they've done specials on SRA in the past. 60 Minutes did the Fiona Barnett story.
That's right.
That was a big deal. She named names. They named names, and positions within the police and politics, and nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. These grubs just close ranks and go on with life as normal without fear of persecution or prosecution. So this is not a job for just the media. This is a job for every decent person to stand up and say, hey, guys, this is unacceptable in our society, and we need to pull this out by the roots, and it has to stop. And I think because it's a small number of the community that are committing these terrible crimes, it's not the norm.
Well, people don't even know what it is. Most people don't even know what it is.
Or they don't believe that it's true.
That too, yeah.
Yeah.
It's that absurd. I recommend listening to the stories because you'll hear the type of abuse and things that children are forced to watch. It's pretty
quite graphic. You can't unhear it, you can't unsee it.
No.
If you've seen any of the videos that goes on or if you heard anything, you'll never unsee it or unhear it. I think probably sometimes that's what drives people to become so passionate about wanting to do something about it, because they're so appalled by what they see and what they hear. And the hardest thing I think is when you hear about some of the people involved, it is our politicians, our lawyers, our police, our those sorts of people all being involved, people that you're supposedly supposed to look up to and trust. But
I would just go as far as to say that they're practicing Satanists. They are the definition of what a Satanist is. People have this conception that Satanists are only what we see in Hollywood, those people with gowns on, or the people that are, in the forest doing, and I'm not saying that doesn't exist, it does, but a lot of practicing Satanists are in our courtrooms. Doctors, the people that are on the board of whatever society. I've been attending these court hearings. I've just been in the last 3 days observing a court case for Vicky Jakarsian, if I pronounce the name correctly. And I'm not saying this, I'm not accusing them of being Satanists, but the behavior is very questionable, because what are they fighting for? Is it morally right to deny someone a heart because they haven't taken an experimental jab? So, again, I'm not accusing them of being Satanists. I'm just saying that these people do exist and they are in our institutions and need to be monitored.
Yeah, look, I think that we've all seen the video clip where in the ABC studio where the camera, because they're all Bluetooth, and it flipped through to the one in the basement where they're having the satanic ritual.
right. Yeah.
basement of the ABC. Whether it's real or not, who knows? But you know, look, Satanism is rooted in communism, because at the end of the day, it's exactly the same plan: is to take away your freedom of choice, and the basis of it is, and I'm going to just put it right out there, is paganism. Now, paganism was, you know, Constantine. What did he create? He created the opioid for the masses, the Catholic Church. So they have church on the ground level and satanic worship in the basements. And guys, that's the way it is. And you can check your history books. Why do we think all the Catholic priests have so much problems? Why do you think they have a standard payment terms for when the priest is caught committing pedophilia?
And to add to that, it's the worship of the ego, where they believe that they are God. Because, I just wanted to add to that, because they present themselves as, it's a power differential where they believe that they are above the masses. So, which we see a lot of that in throughout the world and history, like you've mentioned. So
I just like
Sorry, Ainsley.
Oh, I just wanted to add a comment from one of our listeners here who's put in here from Messerol. Why children? It's because the most powerful energy for the cult followers is innocence. Once we have had our innocence stolen, our will and our inner authority are also stolen, and we are then rendered powerless on an energetic level. And this person says, and I write from experience as having been part of this abuse cycle from 6 months of age.
Wow.
So Messerol, thank you for writing in. We are really sorry that you had to experience that. We hope that you are healing from that. We don't know how old you are now, but regardless of how old you are, we do hope that you are healing from whatever was done to you. And we hope that by having these open conversations that we can start to help other people heal from what's happened to them, and also bring the perpetrators to justice. So thank you for your comments.
So one of the satanic beliefs is, if they have intercourse with a boy who is under the age of 8, during the intercourse, that they can actually travel to a different dimension. And in that dimension, they can be a god. Now, I can tell everybody, these people are just sick and twisted. They're not healthy. They don't go to a different dimension. They are just insane. And it's all part of the same. It was probably perpetrated on them as children. And this is how this continues from victim to victim.
I think I've even seen one video, Lance, when you talk about with the children underage and that, where they take, as part of the initiation process, the priests, I think, take boy brides and they put veils on these boys, and they take these underage boys as boy brides. Really, really sick.
Yeah. Well, it always surprises me, people that worship Satan, because anyone that believes in Satan, therefore, must believe in a creator God. And for me, it's a pretty easy choice. You don't take the scumbag that's going to lead you to everlasting damnation, do you? You take the guy that's going to take you to the better place. So these are sick individuals, but like a disease that's left untreated, it spreads. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing the fulfillment of now, is an unchecked disease in society that's been going on for thousands of years.
And it's also good to question. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead, Julia. I'll keep my thing I want to say. You go ahead.
I just want to mention as well, because the behavior, the satanic behavior has trickled through society, like you mentioned, Lance. And so the question is, how has that happened? Right. So how are these behaviors being projected onto the masses? Because people are blindly taking on this notion that, well, they're worshiping their own ego in a way, because all you got to do is scroll through YouTube look at TikTok, it's all about me. It's all about what I need. It's all like the mental. I'm talking about people's consciousness and how they think. So I would put forward the idea that a lot of people are practicing Satanists and don't even know it due to their ignorance. And I'm not saying that they perform rituals. I'm just talking about the I guess the ideology of the behaviors that are as a result of that. And people just take this stuff on through influence, like through the entertainment industry, as one.
Yeah.
That's been occurring for a long, long time. And I was a perfect example of that. I subscribed to that ideology, and not a satanic ideology, but a form of ego worship, because before I woke up to this, because I had to dive deep and face myself and what was holding me back from seeing the truth. And I had to look inside me. And was I worshiping my own ego? And the answer was yes, because I wanted to be successful in the industry. I wanted to be this and that. And that's a lie. That's not, that's not a good way to live. And that only hurts me and the future of humanity in a way, because we're all connected in consciousness. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that people can be practicing Satanism and not even know it. And that's just a form of worshiping the ego. That's all I wanted to mention as well. Yeah.
Look, I'm really grateful you've made that point. To go right alongside with that, I want to refer you to a few things that tie in with what Lance was saying and that are not so subtle. Here in Queensland, we have a member of Parliament who actually is a member of the Noosa Temple of Satan. So we've got a member in the Queensland government who openly is a member of the Noosa Temple of Satan and has received certain accolades for being a special worshipper of Baphomet or Baphomet, however you want to say it. And currently, right now, those people have said, "Oh, look, it's just a club that we've got. It's like a Rocky Horror Picture Show sort of club thing where we dress up and it's a bit of fun, right?" And that's what they're trying to say. But now that Noosa Temple, and this isn't a new thing. This is an ongoing thing. The Noosa Temple of Satan is taking the battle to the Supreme Court so that they can teach about Lucifer and satanic rituals, etc., in the schools in Queensland. Now, you tell me, a group of people who say that we're not really practicing Satan worshippers, because let's remember, to be a practicing satanic worshipper or worshipper of Satan, Baphomet, whatever you want to say, this is actually a crime in the Crimes Act of Australia. It's actually a crime in the Criminal Code of Queensland. And it's a crime right across our country. And it's a crime that has very serious penalties associated with it. But I want to ask you this question. Why would the Satanic Temple of Noosa be taking this to the Supreme Court to try to get this be allowed to be taught in schools if it's just about the Rocky Horror Picture Show? You see where I'm headed here? Like that's how blatant it has become in our society. And that's frightening.
It is. And I guess another question I ask is are they exposing themselves? I don't know if I will say this right, but I'm going to just put it out there. Are they exposing themselves on purpose for another reason? Maybe. Because if you are someone that has, let's say you are an occultist and you've been taught, not given knowledge that hasn't been taught to the majority of the people, the masses, that would put you in a place of I guess, well, you'd know more. Let's just say that. So if they are telling on themselves so obviously, is that something that we should be thinking about? It's like, why are they doing this? If they wanted to, is it maybe because, I don't know, more people are speaking about it? But
I've got the answer for you. I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay. And I've got the answer for you. And let me couch it in the terms of a war story from me being a police officer. Many years ago, as a police officer, I attended the crime scene, and I'll keep it together here, I promise, guys. I attended the crime scene where a 9-year-old girl had been punched in the back of the head. I'm going to get graphic here. So I'll warn you guys, if you've got children listening to this, you'll need to, you might not want them to hear the story I'm about to tell. A 9-year-old girl was punched in the back of the head while she was on her way home from school. She crossed a small piece of bushland that was only about 100 meters across, right in the thick of suburbia. It's just a little bit of bushland across the road from her school. She walked through there, women in sports clothes, in you know, the Lycra brigade, as I call them, jogged through there on a regular basis. That poor little girl was knocked unconscious, thrown into a boot, driven a few kilometres outside town into lonely bushland, and that's where she was raped and murdered. Now, that is a very, very, very sad thing, and I still suffer a bit of post-traumatic stress disorder from that. There's no two ways about it. And it's interesting that PTSD manifests itself in hyper attention in me. It makes me hyper attentive to people who are lurking around the place. Okay. And so I will look at those people to ascertain, is this a person who's doing something wrong? All right. That's how it manifests itself. It doesn't mean that a person's crazy, although Lance might tell you differently. So the simple fact is, I was right in the thick of that case, right in the thick of that investigation, and felt hugely powerless to stop that. Now, and I wanted to stop that, right? I wanted to protect that little girl. Now, the guy who committed that crime was watched over a daily basis, get a little closer to the bush, a little closer to the bush, a little closer, and then in the bush, and then drove his car in the bush. And he created a feeling of normality, and he pretended that he wasn't doing anything wrong. And so people became accustomed to him being there. We call this camouflage. It's a predatory behavior, and they camouflage themselves. This type of thing exists naturally. It's what crocodiles do. It's what all camouflage hunters do. It's what spiders do if they can. They will camouflage themselves. And now the argument of this Noosa satanic temple is, we're not into devil worship. This is just a fun thing, and we believe we should be able to talk about these fun things in school, right? They're not going in there hardcore saying, look, we'd really like to murder babies and rape them and eat their flesh and drink their blood in front of school children and teach that to school children, right? What they're doing is they go in there and they create their camouflage one little bit at a time, and everyone thinks, oh, this is silly. The question I've got is, why is the Bar Association of the Supreme Court of Queensland even entertaining this as a thing? Yeah. So this camouflage, this predatory camouflage behavior, that's what they do. That's why they do it. Interestingly, I had a group of young university students who thought they would be Satan worshippers. And who thought they would jump out at me one night when I was walking home as a young man from some of my electrical engineering courses. I was about 22 years of age. They tried to physically grab me, and at which time I physically defended myself and knocked a couple of these people to the ground. And they didn't do that anymore. However, the simple fact is, that's more along the lines of, I think anyway, Julia, people, talking themselves into having, something that they don't think is real. They think it's just a bit of fun, or it will get them in the career, or it will get them socially. They'll have a little bit to do with it, and then all of a sudden it's just gone too far.
That's right.
It's a sad state that we're in, and it's pervading across the country. We're in a situation where, 20 years ago, we had a prime minister protect an investigation openly into pedophiles in this country, where a high court judge stood up and said, and it was recorded in the press, he said, I believe we're at a time in Australia where our community is accepting of the fact that it is okay for a man to have sex with a child. He said that, and it was reported, and he spoke it. It was videoed. It was recorded. These things are true. And Australia wasn't even outraged because we did not know what to do, how to stop it. And we're still stuck in that cycle. We don't know what to do at this point in time.
They seem to be more outraged, Kent, when you take away their rights to go to the footy and have a beer than they do with this sort of stuff, which is quite sad.
100%, Ainsley. You've hit the nail right on the head. And that's why, Julia, we as a group, as an executive in the Australia Project, and in places like this, Triple Tap, and in your media, in your Insight Truth media, that's why it's so important we get these facts out there. We've got to get this out there because we need the whole country to stand up.
Yeah,
We do.
yeah. I'm going to, as much as what these conversations are well worthwhile, I'm just going to shift gears in the last 14 minutes of this call, if you don't mind, because I would like to share some of the incredible work that you do as a musician, Julia. When I was trolling your website the other night, in a good way, mind you, because I was looking for some good stuff that I could put on your bio. And of course I came across, I'm just going to play a very snippet. It goes for a very long time, guys. I'm not going to play all of this. I just want to play you a few seconds of some of this music. This is beautiful. If any of you are into relaxation, meditative type music, good for calming and whatnot, or maybe Julie, you can explain to us, why you create this type of music. And I've got some other clips to show you as well, but let's have a look at this one. I'll just play, let's hope this is going to work for me, and we can play a couple of minutes or a little minute of this. Let's just see if this is going to work for me, if my internet's going to play. Okay, hopefully you guys can hear it. Give me a sec, it's just loading. Hopefully, can you guys hear that at all? Cool, thanks, Ken. Just buffering. I'll just bring it back a little bit because I was listening to it last night. So let's play a little bit of this meditative one. Looks like you, Julia, I think you're on the bongo drums there. Hang on.
Tabla.
Oh, tabla. Okay, cool. Let's just. Let's see if I can bring it across onto the screen so you guys can see. There you go. I don't know. Can you see that one of you on the actual video? Thanks, Ken. I can't sort of see behind the scenes there. Looks like she's in a really zoning out. Looks like you're in a pyramid or a tent there. Are you in like a tent?
I'm in there.
Is that like a tent?
No, it's above the garage. It's like a little,
like an attic?
Yeah, attic, sorry.
It looks really cool. We had down the road from me, we had like a teepee that we could go and do sound therapy in, and unfortunately it's gone now. The whole thing's been demolished, but I had a couple of sessions in there. It was looks very much like that, and it had the pole in the middle, and it was very therapeutic. So I've definitely saved this one, Julia, because this looks like a good one that you could just lie down and relax. You look like you're zoning out yourself when you're playing this one.
I am.
And it goes for like an hour, right?
Yeah, I would do sometimes hour ones, 2 hour ones, depending on my energy at the time. Yeah, beautiful. So guys, we will put a link up to that one towards the end, and in the replay when we do that. I've got a few replays to catch up on now. I'm going to be very busy. One of the other sort of things that I saw you do, Julia, which most people don't see, is women on drums. So like actual drums. So this one is called 7/4 polyrhythm. Don't quite know what that means. Maybe you can explain that just while I get that one up and loading. It's just a short clip. I think you're practicing or something, were you? I was teaching how to play 7/4 polyrhythm, and it's just essentially 2 rhythmic cycles happening parallel to each other.
Gets into it in a second.
So that's the 4. So you got a 7 cycle working alongside a 4-beat cycle.
It looks like you're going to be quite coordinated there, Julia.
Yeah, it'll take me a while to explain it, but it's related to a lot of the studies that I did with Indian rhythm, as well as just general. It's as drummers, we would always study polyrhythms, because you got 2 limbs doing something completely different. It's a cycle that reoccurs and overlap loops over itself and doesn't interject. Well, it does at some point, but yeah, it would take me a while to explain. But yeah, it's good fun.
Very, very talented. And the other thing that obviously I could not go without putting up here, because I have to say, looping. I am fascinated with people who do looping. The first time I saw looping, yes, I do enjoy watching, dance and music shows on the box. That's all I kind of watch it for. And of course, we saw my favorite Perth boy here. What was his name again? Perry. Can't even think of his name now. Perry, last name Perry. He did looping and he went on to win the show. And so here's you doing a bit of looping. And for those who don't know what looping is, it's like, if I explain this correctly, Julia, you'll do like a chord or something, and then you'll record that. You'll watch Julia in this one recording it with her feet. She's using her feet to tap the buttons, and she'll play something, and then she'll record that bit. Then she'll do something else, and she'll record that bit. And then throughout it, she then pieces it all together. So it's like being her own orchestra that she's doing. And no doubt this has taken a lot of coordination and learning, but I'm absolutely fascinated with looping. So I couldn't not put this one up, Julia, because I do love looping, and I'd love to hear more of you do looping videos. So let me just put this one up. It just takes a little bit to load. So this is Julia doing late night looping. Were you practicing here, Julia? We're having a bit of fun.
That's right.
So you can see her feet in the bottom of the screen. There, she's pushing all the buttons with her feet. So she records that over and over. Now that's playing, and now she'll do something else. And she'll record something else, and these will all be pieced together to make up the song. It's so cool and so clever. So yeah, that was just a little very short snippet there into some looping. So tell us, what kind of fun do you have when you're obviously very talented? Do you play any other instruments apart from the drums, the guitar, and what was the other one, the tabla? Is that what
Tablas, which is a North Indian instrument. I sing as well, but the rest of the little other things that I do are not very proficient at, like piano, which I'm still learning slowly with any time that I have left throughout my week. But yeah, so predominantly, well, I did my degree on the drum kit, so that is my primary instrument, and the rest is all self-taught.
Julia, you've got to see this. I mean, I know you can see the smile on Ainsley's face. Out of this Triple Tap crew, Ainsley is such a music junkie, mate. I'll tell you, she's I don't know the correct term. What a groupie, right? A music groupie.
Yeah. I love my technology, Ken, and I love people who can play music, could sing. I can't sing for love or money. Sadly, I did give away all my opportunities, I suppose, to play music, piano, violin, and clarinet when I was younger. Just don't know, just some things I'm not good at, some things I am, but some things I'm not. So I love it when I hear people who are so talented in music and things like that. So yeah, for those of you listening, if you love tonight's episode, we're not finished, we've still got a little way to go. Just drop in the comments if you've ever had the opportunity to play a musical instrument of some kind or anything like that. Please do drop that in the queue. I mean, even over here, Ken, last in February when we had the Worldwide Rally over here, very first opportunity I got ever to stand on a stage and speak in front of the freedom movement and tell the people of Perth what we're doing here with the sovereign nations. It was really scary. They put me towards the end and that was okay. And I waited all day, waiting. But in between, when they went for the march, because I stayed back, I couldn't march with my knee the way it was. But they had a band, they had a couple of guys singing with these things, and they had these percussion instruments, the tambourine and the clickers and things like that. And my little girl inside me is going, you want to do it, you want to join in. And they did invite people to join in. And these two other ladies were playing it at once. So my little girl's going, you want to just jump in, just do it. And, sometimes you just got to take that plunge and you just got to do it. And I just couldn't help myself. I walked up, I grabbed the tambourine and I was like, yay, I'm part of this little band for the day. It was quite fun. So sometimes you just got to do those fun things and leap in and take that plunge and not give a crap what anyone thinks.
There's something really special about playing music with people in a group, because it's for me at least anyway, I noticed that after a gig or throughout the gig that I play at, the ego element is it breaks down the ego. I'm not saying it's removed, but it breaks down the ego too of who people are. You can really see who people are when they're on stage. Yeah. But there is a therapeutic aspect to it too, because I found personally over the years of my practice is that there was always a battle between the ego and the heart space, and letting the head go, which is why the tabla meditations were so important in my practices, because actually through that practice I learned how to stop judging myself so hardly, because that's been a big challenge of mine personally. But anyway, every instrument has taught me something really special, as well as playing with people. So if like what you were talking about, getting up on stage, that initial excitement is so amazing. And so I encourage anyone, even if you're not musically inclined, whether it's drama or something, just get involved, because it just that something the energy that you let go of.
Yeah,
everyone's got a different experience, but that's why I love music so much. So
one of the beautiful things of that Worldwide Rally, there was a couple of Indigenous people that were they were actually being free spirits, or this young girl was being an absolute free spirit, and she wanted to come up and sing and do this. And these two old guys who were running it, like the band, were quite happy to let her. And she said, my brother can you sing? Can he sing? And it was beautiful because they let this young Indigenous man come up and he actually sang for us. And she's just dancing and doing almost like corroboree dancing on the grass in front of him. And everyone was just chilled out. It was just so amazing to see. With your meditation stuff and what you do you run any sort of workshops or sessions where people can just come and do sound therapy sessions with what you do with the tablet stuff at all? I
don't, but my mum does. So she does sound healing and sound baths. She's got her own business, her own website. Just launched it actually, so I'm really proud of her. She's doing really well. She's really excited. But she's
Julia, give her website a plug, mate. What website is that?
She just launched it. It's I'm just going to double check I've got the right one.
You double check
that, Julia. And just what we got on the screen, guys, if you can't see, there was a plethora of places that you can connect with Julia Starr, including joining her mailing list. There's a little link there, which we'll put in the chat as well. We'll put all these under the replay as well. You can get hold of Julia through her website, insighttruthmedia.com. She's on Patreon, she's on Facebook, Telegram, Instagram, Discord, YouTube, Twitch. I don't know how you have time to keep up with all those, Julia. I thought I was bad, but man, you're super busy.
Jump on Telegram is probably the best. I get videos taken down off YouTube sometimes. Facebook and YouTube, and so Telegram tends to be the best way at the moment, and the mailing list. Yeah,
excellent. And of course, couldn't go by without doing a shameless plug on your website. I did notice there was a little donation button there, and I know sometimes newsos can do it a bit tough, and you've got some journalism that you're working on in the filmmaking, all of which take time and money. So to support and make a donation to Julia, go to her website, insighttruthmedia.com/donate if you'd like to donate to Julia. And if you'd like to contact Julia with anything, insighttruthmedia@gmail.com. So they're all the places that you can connect with Julia. And our friend Messeril has just come back, and I asked people who play instruments, keyboard, djembe, Atlantean, crystal, and Tibetan bowls. I'm currently working on so-called circular breathing on my didgeridoo, that's a hard one, as a therapy for sleep apnea. So well done, Messeril. Well done.
In regards to the donation, if people are wanting to donate, can I just put forward another option for donation towards the Operation No Ethics case?
Yeah.
Even though I do a lot of my work, I'm okay. Like I've got a job, that sort of thing. So, but I feel like people that are more in need are the defendants in regards to the Operation No Ethics case. They're under some. If people are interested, people can go to paulrobertburton.com, where they'll find information in regards to that case. And if they feel like donating, I would suggest people to go there.
Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, we can certainly put both of those up. So guys, we are out of time. See, I have my little Tibetan bowl here. There we go. We are going to close the meeting off. Ainsley,
before we go, it is absolutely vital to remind everyone that in 2 days' time, that's the 23rd. Pastor Paul Burton, and the No Ethics case is being heard again in Brisbane. That court case was thrown on us quite quickly, and we didn't get much warning. As many people as we can get to attend, even if you don't get to sit in the courtroom, like Lance said before, if we can get 10,000 people sitting there, we need our judges and our authorities to know that we are watching them, and that we peacefully and very lawfully want to demand that justice is served. I know the ins and outs of that case, and I can see what the Australian Federal Police are trying to do to some wonderful Australians who've done nothing more, in my opinion, than attempt to protect children and prevent them from being subjected to child trafficking and to prevent them from being subjected to pedophilia. So that Operation No Ethics, that case, this is a big thing for Australia. It's happening 23rd. Go, Julia.
That's at 9 o'clock. It's been moved an hour forward, so people need to know that. Yeah.
All right. We'll make sure we put that on the website tonight as well, so people can see that and get hold of those details. So, Julia, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show tonight. So excited that you were able to come on and join us. Thank you for sharing those tough conversations with regard to that satanic ritual abuse and child trafficking, and it is a really important subject that we need to keep talking about and keep finding solutions to hold these perpetrators to account. To all of those who are listening, I want to say thank you again for joining us each and every week on Triple Tap and for joining in the conversations with us. And of course, as always, it's a pleasure being here with you both, Ken and Lance, and doing these amazing shows that we're now up to episode 42. So it's exciting. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Triple Tap. Bye for now.
Thanks guys.
For having me.
See you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julia.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.